Good morning, and welcome to today's webcast, Critical Factors for Selecting the Right ERP System. Before we begin, I'm going to play a brief housekeeping video.
Welcome, and thank you for viewing our webcast series. Before we begin, please keep the following in mind. You can customize how you view our presentation and interact with the presenter. For better viewing, close all other applications and turn up your speaker volume. You can adjust window size and placement or enter full screen mode using the controls at the top right of the window or dragging the bottom right-hand corner to resize. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of icons that relate to a different aspect of our session. You can download a PDF of today's slides from the Slide Deck and Handouts widget. You can ask questions by typing in the Q&A window and clicking Submit. We'll do our best to answer all questions or follow up via email. If you experience technical difficulty, refresh your browser by hitting the F5 key. This presentation is not legal, investment, or accounting advice. We encourage you to seek the counsel of a professional service provider to apply this content to your specific circumstances.
I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Labi Rabiu, partner at Moss Adams. Labi has been working in strategy, selection, and implementation of enterprise systems across multiple industries since 1997. He is a certified consultant with strong expertise in diverse ERP implementations, has an accomplished record of managing business process automation projects, and is a chartered accountant knowledgeable in accounting and operation functions. Prior to joining Moss Adams, Labi spent more than 10 years working in IT strategy and compliance roles at national IT consulting companies. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Labi, to get us started.
Yes, thank you, Chad. And I welcome everyone to today's presentation. Our focus for the webinar today is on the critical factors for a successful ERP system selection. There are many reasons why ERP implementations fail. We're going to touch on some of these reasons, but our focus will be on one reason which is often overlooked, and that is poor system selection. Today, we're going to be discussing a few considerations you need to be aware of to significantly increase the chances of a successful selection process. So for our agenda, we'll be discussing what ERP systems do and why they fail. Then we'll differentiate ERP tiers and identify who the major players are. After that, we will discuss the recent trends with ERP systems. What are the market trends and why is cloud still the top trend? We'll then introduce you to the market leader, NetSuite, and explain why it's the market leader. And then finally, we'll wrap it up by going over a recommended method for successfully evaluating ERP system vendors. The first important consideration when selecting an ERP system is to understand why implementations fail in the first place. Why do companies spend so much money on ERP system implementations and yet sometimes fall short? We're going to be discussing some of these reasons. But before we do that, I thought it might be helpful to first describe why we need enterprise systems in the first place. Companies rely on enterprise systems to integrate and automate their business processes. In addition, these systems are supposed to provide several benefits, including automating the flow of information within a company and with its business partners like customers and vendors. They're supposed to provide reporting data for management to analyze, plan, and make decisions on. And they're expected to enable compliance with relevant internal regulatory controls so that an organization's exposure to risk is limited. But oftentimes, what we find is a system is implemented and still fails to meet one or more of these objectives. Processes are still manual, reporting may be cumbersome or just plain non-existent, or the system may be lacking necessary controls or other vital features needed to run the business. And there are a number of reasons for this. I have identified 10 of such reasons why implementations fail. Number one reason on my list is poor change management. the key to change management is communication and communication. You need to get end users involved in the process very early on, from the time you start gathering ERP system requirements all the way through training, testing, and go live preparations. And the reason for this is, however challenging your existing system may be, once folks are invested in it, they may come to dislike the change to processes and routines that come with a new system. Therefore, the key is to communicate the benefits of the new system and get everyone involved in effecting the change. Another reason why implementations fail is date-driven rollout. When companies set artificial quick end dates for projects, it forces everyone to rush through the implementation, resulting in poor oversight, inadequate training, inadequate testing, which are all reasons by themselves why implementations fail. So companies need to be aware of this. Another reason why implementations fail is ineffective project management. And that's why it's very important to vet the designated project manager that the vendor has selected for your project, as well as your own internal project champion, to make sure they have strong project management skills. Experienced project managers understand the need for clear project objectives, project governance structure, and risk-aware project planning. They know how to manage personalities and drive everyone towards a successful result. Another reason why implementations fail is use of inexperienced resource, and vendors are especially guilty of this. And you can avoid being their guinea pig by reviewing the resume of your vendor's project team very carefully, especially the functional and technical resource responsible for configuring your system. Inadequate training is another reason why implementations fail. And this point is obvious enough, but you find that it has become an issue with the recent vendor emphasis on train-the-trainer approach. The train-the-trainer approach is when vendors train the client's key business process owners, who in turn are responsible for training all end users. Now, there's nothing wrong with this approach if these key business process owners are themselves well trained. But what we find is companies sometimes fail to invest the right amount of resource and time in training these business process owners, and that often results in implementation failures. Another reason is failure to give data migration the importance it deserves. Data migration requires planning for data extract, cleansing, mapping, import, and reconciliation. Vendors are not going to be doing data preparation for you. Therefore, it is very important to make sure that you plan for data migration carefully. The best practice is to avoid loading years of historical data wherever possible, because the further back you go, the more likely you're to run into data migration issues. So instead of transferring years of historical data from your legacy system to the new system, you can simply keep an archive copy of your legacy data and refer to it when necessary. Another reason is skipping the testing phase to save time when companies go live on projects. With little testing and rushing to meet project deadline, you end up with a lot of issues and then start resolving problems in the middle of processing live transactions. And soon enough, everyone is overwhelmed and stuck in an endless loop of issue resolution. The eighth reason on my list is when you buy an industry-neutral system called a horizontal system and then try to over-customize it. Over-customizing systems result in painful buggy rollout and cost overruns, especially when organizations get carried away trying to customize the system to fit every imaginable wish list instead of keeping everyone focused on the most important requirements. Implementations also fail when the scope is not well defined. The project scope is the documentation of the project requirements, the deliverables, cost, and deadline. When the project scope is poorly defined, what you find is everyone then tries to shape the implementation, resulting in scope creep and cost overruns. The final reason and the focus of our discussion today is poor system selection. This is the most underestimated reason why ERP implementations fail. When a system is a poor fit, what follows is a costly attempt to make it work. Extensive customization, needless changes to processes, and expensive add-ons. And this pitfall can be avoided by taking a methodical approach towards selecting the right system for your business. This approach starts with an understanding of why implementations fail in the first place, just as we've been discussing. While the approach starts with understanding why implementation fails, it doesn't end there. You also need to learn to differentiate the ERP systems available in the marketplace. In order to differentiate ERP systems available, you need to know the right questions to ask as you begin your evaluation. Pertinent questions to ask include, what are the ERP tiers and who are the major players in each tier? Which systems play strongest in my industry? Are there any dark horses I should be aware of and consider in my selection process? How are the systems differentiated? What are the deployment models? And what does a partner ecosystem look like if we need an add-on to the system? And what is the ballpark total cost of ownership estimate for the available systems in the marketplace that I could be evaluating? To answer all these questions, you either assemble an in-house selection team who can do the required research, or hire a good enterprise systems consultant who's familiar with your industry. And we'll touch on some of these questions, starting with how to differentiate ERP tiers. There are 3 tiers of ERP systems. And broadly speaking, systems are classified into tiers based on functional capability, scalability, the typical revenue of organizations that use them, and also based on cost of implementation. Tier 1 ERP systems have deeper capabilities and are typically focused on large enterprise and upper mid-market entities. They can support unlimited organizational structure, higher user count, global revenue base, and are usually pretty expensive. The average total cost of ownership starts from about 500,000 to $1 million plus, and that's just starting price for implementing a tier 1 ERP system. So these systems are usually complex. The dominant players here are SAP, Oracle, and Infor. And these 3 have cornered the tier 1 ERP market by acquiring different applications and consolidating them under their brand umbrella. Microsoft also plays in this category with Dynamics 365 for finance and operations, previously known as Dynamics AX. Tier 2 systems have modest capabilities and are usually focused on small to mid-market organizations. They cost on average between 50,000 and 500,000. And this is just a rough order of magnitude because they are outliers. The other point to note here is there are many of these mid-market solutions. The list you see here is just a quick flavor, and it's neither an exhaustive list nor in any particular order. Tier 3 ERP systems have the least capability of the tiers. They are usually focused, with some exceptions, on smaller moms and pop type organizations. I have included here a few examples. Sage does very well in this market and has a lot of tier 3 products focused on specific regions of the world. So who are the main players? As we've seen, Oracle, SAP, Microsoft, Sage have the most ERP market share. These companies have various ERP products across the tiers. And here's just a sample of some of the products available within these main parent company vendors. As you can see, some of these are also some of the systems we saw when we reviewed the ERP tiers earlier. But there are also other notable players. And here's a sample list of some of the most common systems that we see in use. Now, this is, again, by no means an exhaustive list. So you can take a look at this and see if there are any of these you might be familiar with. So selecting the right ERP system also requires being aware of recent trends. It is especially important because the ERP landscape has changed significantly in the last decade. The number one trend is that the traditional on-premise deployment methods have been upstaged by easier to deploy cloud solutions. And so most vendors now offer cloud hosting services. Another trend is vendors have made systems more user-friendly with very simplified, easy-to-use user interface. A third trend is the extension of ERP systems to mobile devices for easier access. Vendors also now embrace rapid implementation methods to allow faster, cost-effective deployments. And lately, we have seen more emphasis on robust analytics in the so-called IERP, or intelligent ERP systems. AI-enabled ERP systems are those that are capable of learning from exceptions and adapting business rules and recommending next best steps. And we have also seen another trend called omnichannel support. And this is a trend whereby retailers leverage an ERP system to connect all of their sales channels in order to give customers the same personalized experience, whether the customer is on their web store, on a mobile device, or in the store speaking to a customer service rep. With omnichannel enabled ERP, retailers can easily reference a customer's previous purchases and preferences, regardless of the sales channel the customer is choosing to interact with them. And these are just examples of some of the trends. And so you need to be aware of the latest ERP trend within your industry. Then you can be in a position to ask informed questions about your system options. And as we've noted, cloud remains the top ERP trend. So let's quickly touch on a history of cloud ERP and differentiate cloud deployment methods. ERP systems became popular in the 90s when some of the vendors we saw earlier developed on-premise applications integrating all business functions. But it wasn't until 1998 when NetSuite debuted as NetLedger that we had the first 100% browser-based ERP system. By the 2000s, more internet-enabled systems started to gain traction. Gartner dubbed this ERP2. The on-premise vendors fought back, and that created a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But by 2010, we had a lot of clarity as cloud-based systems started gaining the upper hand. And these cloud vendors started processing data in real time and started leveraging machine learning. And today, most on-premise systems have since rebranded as cloud solutions, making it harder to distinguish what is true cloud. These vendors offer multi-tenant and single-tenant, but not all cloud is the same. Multi-tenant architecture is one where multiple companies share the same instance to store their data. Multi-tenancy means that a single instance of the software and all of the supporting infrastructure serve multiple customers. Each customer shares the same software application and also a single database. The data is tagged in the database as belonging to one customer or another, as you can see on the left side of the slide. And the software is smart enough to know who the data belongs to. Single tenant, on the other hand, is an architecture where each company has their own instance of the software application and all supporting infrastructure. A single instance of the software and all of the supporting infrastructure serve a single customer. With single tenancy, each customer has their own independent database, an instance of the software. And with this option, there's essentially no sharing going on. Everyone has their own separate from everyone else. Of these two, multi-tenant is the true cloud architecture. And it's important to be aware of this because single tenancy is essentially a hosting service that some vendors do provide, as opposed to one that is fully architectured as a cloud system and 100% browser-based. So having talked about cloud, I thought it'd be helpful to understand why cloud ERP systems are gaining traction. What are the benefits of cloud ERP, which would explain why most organizations are moving to the cloud? Well, security is one, because cloud ERP vendors have invested a lot in securing their data centers across the world, much better than any organization could do on its own with on-premise system. Global access is another one. It can be accessed from anywhere in the world, just using from a mobile device or from a laptop, just using a browser. There is no version lock. If you make customizations to it, it can be easily upgraded for you because the upgrade is done by the vendor. There's also reduced cost. Over a 3 to 5 year horizon, when we look at cost estimate, cloud solutions tend to cost less than on-premise system. It's a quicker deployment because the cloud vendors now embrace rapid implementation method as opposed to the traditional deployment method that takes years to implement. Data can be accessed in real time, and so can reports. And as we've noted, these systems have easier to use user interface. So having talked about cloud ERP system, I thought it would be helpful to know who is the market leader for this number one trend. Who is the cloud market leader? Well, the rating agencies have consistently ranked NetSuite as the market leader in the cloud. From Gartner to Forrester to IDC to G2 Crowd, NetSuite is the leader in cloud ERP. It is the first multi-tenant cloud ERP and the one we see most often deployed by customers who are moving to the cloud. It's a leader in the Magic Quadrant for Gartner and is the only mid-market solution in that category. For Forrester, it's also a leader for digital operations for distribution. Same thing for IDC MarketScape, as you can see there, is the leader for worldwide SaaS and cloud-enabled mid-market finance and accounting application. And for G2 Crowd, it's the top accounting software for all market segments. NetSuite is a modern, proven, and global system with true cloud architecture, as we've described earlier, multi-tenant cloud. It also offers a unified data model, and it has seamless flexibility across the platform, and it's also mobile enabled. With more than 40,000 customers globally and thousands signing on to NetSuite, it's got the reach of a global ERP system capable of supporting any organization, and it has the weight of a global organization like Oracle behind it. Another reason why NetSuite is so popular is it's a flexible, modern, and complete solution. And here we've listed some of the capabilities. I'm not going to read through all of this, but from global multi-language support all the way through collaboration, allowing social collaboration between employees and partners, to flexible development and deployment method. You could integrate NetSuite with any application. You could, using Suite Analytics, build your own reports, mine data, analyze data as you need it. You could also create your own workflow, Suite Flow, to manage approval workflow throughout your organization. And in terms of operation, it's highly scalable. It's a secure platform, and it's PCI compliant for credit card processing. Is also SOX compliant with strong controls built in, and it's 99.5% guaranteed uptime, so you can access the system anytime. And it also offers sandbox environment for those who need to test prior to going to production. And there's no version lock, as we noted. As you make changes to the system, it's automatically upgraded for you. It's a fully integrated ERP system with KPIs, dashboards, roles, workflows, forms, and thousands of pre-configuration targeted at specific industries. And with integration and suite apps and available for adding on to the platform as needed, there is significant power within NetSuite. Now, fair disclosure, while we provide system neutral and vendor agnostic technical and technology advisory services for our clients on the enterprise systems environment. We do have a group within Moss Adams that partners with Oracle NetSuite to implement the system. The firm has been a partner since 2007, providing business process outsourcing, solution implementation, as well as software development and extension to the NetSuite platform. And that has won us accolades, including 2016 Innovator of the Year award. So if you're interested in exploring this platform further, don't hesitate to reach out. Our team would be happy to give you an overview and also provide a demonstration of the system. So we've talked about some of the considerations when selecting ERP system. The final consideration when selecting system is to have a method for evaluating your ERP system vendors. This method for success starts with defining your key requirements by business process, letting your requirements drive your vendor shortlist and organizing them into an RFP, creating a demo script and scoring the demo when you are evaluating vendors, and making sure you get your total cost of ownership right. So let's start with defining your requirement. You want to start by clearly documenting your most critical needs and avoiding an overgeneralized list of requirements. You start by defining your business processes in scope, your key pain points around each business process, the business and product roadmap over a 5-year horizon for your organization, and your unique industry requirements, as well as your compliance and reporting needs, which a lot of organizations often fail to define when they're defining their requirements. One of the most important predictors of a successful selection is how well these requirements have been defined, because they will form the basis of your decision criteria when you're selecting the vendors. And then make sure the requirements dictate your vendor shortlist and organize them into an RFP package. And for your vendor shortlist, you want to select a proven evaluation tool or work with an ERP consultant who can help you shortlist likely systems based on your needs. You want to organize your requirements to form the core of the RFP that's going to the vendors. And in the RFP package, make sure you strike the right balance of brevity and clarity. The document should summarize your business, the reason for the RFP, and the business processes in scope, and the key functional requirements. And you should elicit information about the vendor's implementation approach, their maintenance and support plans, and total cost of ownership estimate. And in the RFP package, you want to be clear about your evaluation and award criteria. And I always advise clients, in your RFP package, try to avoid lengthy narratives about the vendor's history, because the vendor will most likely cover this during the demo. And besides, you should be researching that, not just relying on representation the vendor is providing you. And it's also important to put together a demo script and score your demos. When you use a demo scorecard, you provide an objective basis for comparing each vendor's response to your requirements. And it also helps narrow down areas for follow-up and could reflect a weighting of your requirement based on how you perceive the importance of the requirement. And you should also score non-functional criteria, like the underlying product technology, resource availability in your local region, the vendor's solvency, their support and maintenance track record, as well as their industry experience. And throughout the demo process, you want to keep the vendor focused on the demo script and ask pointed questions on any gray area. Finally, make sure you get your total cost of ownership right. You want to start your TCO estimate very early in the selection process. A 3-year TCO estimate is good practice. And in doing that, you want to itemize all expected outlay, regardless of how the system is hosted. The license cost, implementation cost, training, integration cost, annual maintenance, and post-implementation partner support fees. And one quick note is not to rule out vendors solely on cost grounds until you have completed your evaluation and negotiation. And the reason for that is some vendors are known to offer generous license or subscription discounts in the face of fierce competition, and you want to take full advantage of this. In closing, of the many factors that influence the success of ERP implementations, selection of the right system is the most critical. When an ERP system fails to meet the set objectives, often it's because the selection process falls short. To narrow your selection to the best system for your needs and improve the chances of a successful implementation, you want to understand why ERP implementations fail in the first place. And we went through those. And you also want to understand the ERP systems landscape. We went through how to differentiate the different deployment method, what the ERP tiers are, and ways to identify the market leader in the ERP space. And in evaluating vendors, you want to take a methodical approach to your requirements documentation, your vendor shortlist, your demos, and your total cost of ownership analysis. And with that, we've come to the end of our presentation. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Labi, for a great presentation today. If you submitted questions today, we will do our best to follow up with you after the webcast. Here's a link to an online survey where you can provide feedback for today's presentation. Please take a moment to complete this survey as your feedback is very important to us. Thank you for joining us. We hope you join us again next time.